Welcome to another edition of Quarantine Coaching Conversations. I'm Coach Gene Clemens, and I have a special guest here today joining me. Just imagine, if you will, if you were a coach, and everybody, I'm a head coach, and a lot of you that watch these videos are head coaches. Imagine, if you will, the opportunity to build your own program is great because you don't have to really answer to anyone when it comes to the program itself. But take a step further. Like, what if you had to decide what the uniform was going to look like because they had never had a uniform before? What if you had to help in the planning of what the fields and locker rooms would look like and how you wanted them set up? Imagine having to go through all of the small little itty bitty minutia that most of the times we don't think about because that structure has already been set up. And then you'll get an understanding of what my guest, Miguel Regalado, the head football coach at Clarke University, has had to deal with over his time. It's very unique when that a person gets an opportunity to build a program from scratch, start with a clean slate, no bad anything, just everything brand new. And Coach Regalado has dealt with that. He's going to talk to us about that today. And, we'll chop it up for a little bit. For those who don't know, obviously, Coach Regalado and I go way back. We go back to, I believe, 2007. I was a graduate assistant at Urbana University, and Coach Regalado was working as a defensive coordinator at the time. I was at Coach Regalado's wedding when he married his beautiful wife Heather, and I count him as a friend. And even though we don't talk nearly as much as we should, every time we do talk, we roll back into that old habit. So, Coach Regalado, welcome. It's great to have you with me today.
Thank you so much, Gene. And man, you brought back a little bit of a memory there, our Urbana days. And, but you're exactly right. And it's funny as I'm sitting here listening to you talk, it's one of those aha moments. I have them every once in a while, and listening to you talk about all the things that we've had to do since I've been here and since I took the job 3 years ago. It seems like it was 10 years ago. These last 3 years have flown by incredibly. There's been so much work to do, and but you're 100% right. When we got to Urbana, it reminds me and brings me back that we were trying to change a culture at Urbana. When Gene and I were at Urbana University, I remember many people talking about that place as the armpit of college football. And, they had won maybe 18 games in 18 years. And we got it to where they were in the top 25 again and winning, but it was about changing a culture. At Clarke has been about starting a culture. And I won't lie, it is much better, easier to start a culture than it is to change one. So it's been really exciting. It's been a whirlwind 3 years. You asked me to talk about how this all began, and it really began with the success that we had at my previous university at Baker. We're in the same conference as Clarke, and to be able to go to a national championship, even though we did not win that game, allowed me to all of a sudden become a good coach and have an opportunity to start a program from scratch. And, when I got here, you're 100% right, Gene. There's nobody that I could call to say, how do I start this? What's the first thing you do? Where do you go first? And so everything was kind of like I've always taken my career, which is if you don't have the answers, you pretend like you have the answers until you find the answers. And so that's what I did with just about every single thing that came my way is pretend like you know what you're talking about. If you don't, you better figure it out real quick, because that next meeting, you better know what you're talking about. And so that's kind of how I take every step with this job. And, oops, Gene, you're there. I'm sorry. I'm a little technically unsound, as Gene knows. So Gene was kind of my guy that made sure I was technically sound at Urbana. But, taking everything step by step. If you don't know what you're talking about, figure it out. I'm at a place, very fortunate, Gene, that I would say the first step for a young head coach that is going into a situation like mine is to have an administration that is 100% behind what they're doing. And Clarke University did this the right way. They went at it step by step. They didn't go all in right away. What they did is they built it in pieces. And so I was here all by myself in the very first year, recruiting the class of 2018. And as you said, it was with nothing to show for it. We had no weight room. We had no locker room. We had no football field. We had nothing. We had no helmets, no uniforms. So what I did was sell a dream and sell a vision. And step by step, we signed 40 guys in that first class that believed in what we were trying to build. And it took off from there.
You know, and that's great. And it puts us in a great segue, because I want to talk about how your dream got to this point, because I know that, you know, like me, we've all had head coaching aspirations. And, you know, I knew when I first met you that you were somebody who was a leader of men. You were a great mentor for me as I was coming through. You were a great mentor to a lot of our young men in Urbana. And so I understood that you had a purpose about you. You got to Baker, I believe it was 2008. You took over offensive line, or was it defensive line? No, I think offensive line, correct?
You're right. That's right.
And so all of a sudden you get there, and I won't say it was because of you, but people started running the ball a lot better, you know, and there was a lot of success had from it. Obviously, in 2011, you were promoted to offensive coordinator. The offense continued to make great strides, culminating 4 years ago now with your national championship run, which I was at. And I was fortunate enough to not only be at, but actually be covering for Football Game Plan, which I was doing some work for at the time. To see you and to know the type of stress that you had when you were the defensive coordinator at Urbana, to the relative ease that it seemed, or comfort that you felt when you were the offensive coordinator at Baker. How do you think you got from there, you know, from that one point to the other in that time? Was it just really, you know, gaining more balance in life and kind of understanding that it wasn't just football or everything? Because, you know, us, we were, you know, damn near 20 hours a day, you know, in the office. So how did you get to that point? Because the Regalado I saw in 2006, that's 2006, 2007 season, definitely not the Regalado that I saw in the national championship game.
You're 100% right. You know, I will tell you how I got there was a lot of mistakes. When we were at Urbana, Gene, you know, I remember you always were a very calm, keep everything in perspective, old for your age, and I was everything is huge. Every little thing is important. Everything should be about football and football only. And if I didn't feel like a young man was thinking and eating and breathing and sleeping football 100% of the time, he wasn't committed. Everything was about X's and O's and wins and losses. As I've gotten older and I've become a stayed a coordinator, because when you're a coordinator, you're the head coach of your side of the ball. It is your job to sell the mission and the vision of the head coach, but you're the head coach of your side of the football. And that was invaluable experience for me. When I got to Urbana, my first year, I was an offensive line coach making $10,000 a year. You know, I just graduated with my master's degree at South Dakota, and I was an offensive line coach. And then all of a sudden, a year later, our offensive coordinator says, I'm in love and I'm getting out of the profession. And a year later, I am the offense coordinator at a college and at 23 years old. And to have that kind of experience was huge. Now, I made a lot of mistakes at Urbana, a lot of mistakes. I was the offense coordinator for 4 years, and then, as you said, took over as the defense coordinator. But the experience that I gained was huge. Now, I go to Baker University, and I'm playing for my old head coach at my junior college, Mike Grossner. And he says, Coach, you're going to coach the offensive line, until I'm ready to step away and let you have the reins. And that happened in 2011. And year by year, I felt like I just got more mature. And the one thing that I learned from Coach Grossman, I learned a lot of things, but I would say the most important thing is that your kids need to have fun. They need to enjoy playing football. They need to be student athletes first. At our level, I've been at this level my entire career, Gene, and I've seen one guy go to the NFL. He was a long snapper, and we're not here to send guys to the NFL at our level. You know, that level doesn't miss. They don't miss a whole lot. It's rare that you're looking at the NFL draft and you're seeing an NAI player getting his name called because it's that rare. But I will tell you this, I get a lot of letters, I get a lot of emails, a lot of phone calls, a lot of invitations to weddings from guys that say, Coach, you made a difference in my life. And that is what got me to that point in 2016 when you saw me. I had it in perspective. I realized what our level is about and what being a head football coach is all about, and being a mentor to our people, to our kids. And I think that's what got me the job at Clarke. You know, they had a ton of applications, but Clarke is the kind of place that cares about kids, and they want to win. We're very successful in sports here at Clarke, but it's more about the student having a great experience, growing as a person and getting their degree. And I think that's what came out in the interview, and that's what allowed me to get to this point and start this program.
Absolutely. And, you know, the Heart of America Conference is a very good conference, and it's one that is filled with teams that are not just competitive on the field, but they're competitive academically as well. Do you think it was because, I mean, and by the way, we're 2016 assistant coach of the year in the Heart of America Conference, and now you're looking at taking over a program in the same conference, knowing that eventually you're going to have to face up against the same program that you left and deal with the other programs that you've already had experience with. Do you think that allowed you to come in to the job and be a little bit more confident than, say, you would if you had gone somewhere where you didn't understand the recruiting landscape or anything that's associated with that?
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I have a very close relationship with quite a few of the head coaches in our conference. You know, not only working with them in head coach meetings now for a number of years, but coordinating against them and recruiting against them. And I think it helped me come in with a lot of confidence. The one thing that I could always say to a student athlete, Gene, when I was recruiting them is, I know what it takes to win the Heart of America Athletic Conference. I know what it takes to win the conference, and I know what it takes to get all the way to the end from the conference, which I believe is one of the top two in the country at our level. The Heart and the Mid-States are the two best. And so to be able to confidently say, this is what it's going to take, and I know how to get there, and here's the plan, step by step, strength and conditioning, practice, spring weights, summer program. To be able to tell a student athlete, this is how every step is going to look, and this is how we're going to get it done, makes that student athlete confident that this guy knows what he's doing. And it's awesome to be able to, you know, make a phone call when I need some advice. You know, I Coach Thorne over at Baker, I worked with him for 10 years, and, you know, and to be able to call him or to be able to call Coach Grossner, who's doing other things now, and be able to ask advice is huge for me, being that first-time head coach taking over a brand new program. So I'm real fortunate. I think at the NAI level, you know you have good head coaches when you see good football on the field. And every week, week in and week out in the Heart, you're seeing really good football. And so you know that our conference is full of some really good head coaches, really good mentors for me, and guys that I can pick up a phone call and ask a question when I need it.
Now, I'm a recruit. It's 2017. You're telling me I'm not going to be able to play legitimate college football in 2019. How are you able to sell 40 kids on that, knowing that they were going to have to spend 2 years, which means, and I'm thinking in my head, like 2 years, okay, so they're 2 years in the program. I guess 1 year they'll all redshirt. The second year they'll burn a year before they're able to play. Like, I'm thinking about it in my head as a football player. I had designs on stepping onto a college campus and playing football right now. How were you able to sell those 40 kids, that initial class, that this was a great opportunity for them, even though they knew they weren't going to play football anytime soon?
Yeah, it was difficult. To say the least, it was difficult. Anytime you're bringing a college football onto campus these days, in our world now, they expect immediate results, immediate gratification. I'm going to play right away, coach. I'm going to set records. I'm going to do this, this, and this. So that's a very difficult thing. However, the one thing that I had going for me is typically in a brand new program, Gene, you're going to have a JV year where you let your kids get their feet wet, knock out some of those early nerves and not really worry about that first year. This is not what we did here, Clarke. At Clarke, we went right into competition in that first year. And to be able to say that we played in the Heart of America Athletic Conference with a bunch of freshmen and redshirt freshmen, that's, first of all, that's scary as a football coach, because you are more concerned about, are my kids going to be healthy at the end of the year? Are we going to suffer some devastating injuries because they're not physically ready to play football? That was the number one thing that I sold was, hey, Gene, you need this year. You need this year to get yourself physically ready to play football. That was number two. Number one was, Gene, do you understand that the first year in college is usually the year that you're going to blow it in the classroom? You are away from home. You don't have mom and dad telling you what to do, where to go, when to do your homework. So here's what I'm selling you. I'm selling you that I'm going to give you that whole first year to get you physically ready to play football, and more importantly, get your feet wet in the classroom. And I'll tell you this, Coach, we did a heck of a job with that. It was me and two coordinators, that's it, coaching about 50 guys when you added in our transfers. And we did great in the classroom. We got those guys, their bodies changed. You're talking about each guy putting on an average of 20 to 25 pounds that first year. And the scariest part was going into the season with the class of 2019 not having any of that. That was the scariest part. And so, Gene, I won't lie to you. 2019 was about surviving. I will say it. We wanted to survive. We wanted to get out of the season healthy. And I told my coordinators and my staff, at the end of the 2019 season, I want to be able to turn on the tape and see what is our base offense, what is our identity on defense, and what is our identity on special teams. That's all I want to know, guys. I want to know what is our identity in those three phases at the end of the 2019 season, and I want our kids to be healthy. And I'll tell you this, Coach, for playing in the Heart of America Athletic Conference with the class of 2018 that was redshirted and the class of 2019 that was a bunch of true freshmen, I thought we did a heck of a job. We won 2 games, which is probably 2 more than anybody thought we could win. We lost 28-0 to the number 13 team in the country. I'm extremely proud of it. Now, did we get a little banged up on the offensive side of the ball at the end of the year? We did. Defensively, we were healthy all the way through. And I think that's about taking care of your kids. I think that's about practicing smart. But that was what we sold. Bottom line, you need a year to develop in the weight room. Class of 18, you need a year to get your feet wet in the classroom and get off the right foot in the classroom. The class that scared me was the class of 19. They stayed reasonably healthy. We did great in the classroom in the fall. Now we got to finish it out in the spring from home, which always worries you just a little bit with some guys.
Yeah, and I was speaking with Coach Harrison, the head coach at Bethel College, and talked about the unique thing about NAIA programs is that it seems to be two different types of programs. There are the type of programs where, you can get a lot of kids in over here, but you're constantly trying to retain them. And then there are the programs where it's harder to get kids in, but you don't really have to worry about retaining them as much because they academically, they know what they're doing. They're usually there for the right reasons. So I would classify the Heart as a conference in that second vein. Would I be, somewhere close with that?
I think you're 100% right. There are some schools in the Heart that recruit numbers, but they found a way to win doing it. Baker University, Gene, we never got over 115 players, and I always felt.
Oh, that's because it's impossible to get into Baker. That's why.
It's
impossible. I tried to send like 7 kids to you. I couldn't do it.
Gene, I know it, man. And I'll tell you, it's you're 100% right. When you do have high standards academically, I do believe that has a lot to do with your retention rate. And Baker has a good retention rate. Clarke has one of the best in the Heart as far as student athletes. And so I would 100% agree with you that the Heart is more like that second tier. As I said, there are some schools that will recruit numbers. But you know what? That's the great thing about this job. When I took it, I remember our president, Joanne Burrows. She has since left, and we have a new president. But she said, Miguel, I don't want this to turn into a factory where you are shoveling kids in and out of here every other semester. If a kid comes to Clarke to play for you, I want them to graduate, and I want them to have a great experience. Yes, I want to win, but those other two things are first. And I'll tell you, Gene, that's the kind of job you want. It's very similar to Baker. You want a president that says it is more about the experience and your kid graduating than it is wins, because no one has ever had to tell me to be good in football, or Coach Grossner at Baker, hey, we want you to be good. We know that. So what we don't want is for somebody to be jumping the gun saying we should have this amount of wins this year. You want somebody that says, I want my kids to have a great experience. I want them to graduate. Then the football part. You'll take care of that part. And so that's why I believe, and I've said this for a couple of years when I got to Clarke, that Clarke is a sleeping giant. We are in a city of 60,000 people, Gene. We have an administration that has done it the right way. We have a philosophy at Clarke that is about the student experience and them graduating. And we have great facilities here. They're all brand new. So with time, this will become a great place. This whole Corona thing, I'm on quarantine coaching clinic right now. And this Corona thing has thrown everything into a loop. As well as I do, being a football coach, that second year, that's when you make your most improvement. And I will tell you this, Gene, I was so excited with our kids coming out. Oops, Gene, you got me? I was so excited with our kids coming out of spring weights, and I could not wait to get on the film for spring football to see, the new guys compete, got the class of 19 that didn't have an opportunity to play a whole lot, to see what they had. But as I've told my kids from the get-go, we've got to adjust, we've got to adapt, and we've got to overcome. So it'll throw a little bit of a wrinkle into camp this summer, but we'll be ready to go.
I tell people all the time, I went to a Division III school to start my college career, and so I don't have a lot of understanding when it comes to preparation. Essentially, we reported, in beginning of August, and by the end of August, we were playing football games. So it was a quick turnaround. I would say we probably had 3 to 4 solid weeks, 3 weeks, and then the 4th week we were into preparation for our first opponent. So if Division III kids are doing it, like, I feel like it's going to be okay for for players at a higher level. It's going to be different for the coaches, because the coaches aren't used to having such little time. I think the players will adapt a lot faster than we give them credit for, because we just think that they're at that preparation level that we are. We have to remember that they're not, or else, they'd probably be, pros or doing something that they're going to make way more money at in the infancy of their life. So I always think that's one of the things. I understand that, this pandemic that we're dealing with is crazy, but I do think that we have an advantage of these kids are a lot more flexible than we give them credit for a lot of times. And so I'm looking forward to the time that we actually get back. I can't wait. I have a team that I haven't even met face to face yet with. And so I'm looking forward to that opportunity, but I'm definitely not worried about the preparation thing. I think at some point we'll all be playing with the same deck, and so that'll make it okay. One thing I'm really interested to know, with your administration, what was one thing that they did not understand about football that you knew was paramount, that you had to kind of get them to understand?
I would say that the time that it's going to take to build this thing. Gene, I will, and I'm not patting myself on the back, I feel like I did a fantastic job of selling my vision for this program and selling what it's going to look like, what the finished product will look like. However, there's times where you sell it so well that people think it's going to happen right away. Like, man, we're going to hit the field and we're going to be seeing the New England Patriots flying around here. And so as we got closer to 2019, I had to continue to remind the administration and our fans that this is a process. This is going to take some time. But I promise you're going to see improvement every single year. So I would say probably the time that it's going to take to build this. I have a plan that, year by year, I expect to see a certain amount of wins. We came very close to that first year. People will be hard-pressed to believe I thought we could win 3 games in 2019. I really did, with a bunch of freshmen and redshirt freshmen. But I do believe we recruited really well here and put together a great staff and have some great kids. So that was the hardest part, because on TV, all you see is the finished product. You see the Patriots winning a Super Bowl, or whoever, or, Clemson winning a national title, or LSU winning a national title. You don't see all the work that went in prior to that point. And so that's been the hardest part, because I want to get there quick too, Gene. I do. I want to get there, and I want to win right away, and I want to show what this program is going to be. But I had to make sure that I stayed grounded. I'm a junior college player, but I will tell you, I wanted to build this thing with graduating seniors. I wanted guys that were going to be here for 4 years at the beginning, because I wanted to build a foundation that we could then begin to build upon off of that. So it's hard sometimes. It's an ego check. You have to be patient. But that was probably the hardest thing, is making sure the administration knew this wasn't going to happen overnight. This is a building process. Trust me, you've hired the right guy. I've had to say that a couple times. You've hired the right guy. Just let it happen. And they've done an unbelievable job with that.
So one of the things that I'm looking at now, and I'm just thinking about me as a coach going forward, because now you're in a unique situation. You're going to have sophomores that are entering their 3rd year into the program. You're going to have freshmen that are entering their 2nd year, you're going to have redshirt freshmen that are entering their 2nd year into the program, and then sophomores that are in their 2nd year in the program. That's a 3-year window for me as a coach to go, do you really want to go to Clarke? They've already they already have starters. They're going to start for 3 years. How are you going to break that line up? We're looking for guys right now. We have a hole here. We need to fill right now, because we lost 5 and 6 seniors that started for us. They have their starters for the next 3 years. How do you combat? Because that's something that's unique to a program and a coach where he started a program from scratch. You don't usually get that from programs where there's been kids in the program already. How do you combat that? How do you work against that?
You know, I got a great piece of advice from a friend a year ago, and he said, Miguel, the hardest thing you're going to have to do is out-recruit your original class. He goes, you're going to be so loyal to that very first class because they were there with you from the get-go that you're not going to want to out-recruit them, and you're out of loyalty, and you're going to have to do it. And so, Gene, what I've always said to my staff is you go out and find the best student athletes that you can find and get them to Clarke, and then let it shake out after that. You know, I go back to the 2000 and it would have been the 2015 season at Baker. I had a starting quarterback. He had started the entire season. I knew the guy behind him was better, but the guy in front of him hadn't done anything to lose the job. And we get all the way to the playoffs, and he gets hurt the final regular season game of the year. So we're going in to see the first game of the playoffs, 2015, and I know that Nick's not 100% healthy. I know he could play, but he's not 100% healthy. And I know that the offense will run better with Logan Bertell at quarterback. And that's a tough decision. Now, it was an easier decision because Nick wasn't healthy. So he was great that first game. He said, Coach, I get it. Well, Logan Bertell comes out and throws for 450 and 5 touchdowns. Well, all of a sudden, you're going into game 2. Now, all of a sudden, Nick's healthy. And I've got to make a decision as the coordinator. What is the best decision? Do I go with the guy that has set their touchdown record that season, and Nick has done nothing to lose the job, got injured. Logan came in and played great. However, that first week, Logan showed what I felt all year long. The offense will run better with Logan. And I had to make a really, really, really difficult decision in week 2. And that was to stay with Logan as a starter over our senior that had set their touchdown record. And nobody but you, Gene, knows that you're making the right decision. And you just hope that it plays out on the field. Now, the very next year, Logan Bertell wins an AI Player of the Year, throws for 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards, and I'm okay. People realize it was the right decision. But had Logan not done that, people would be second guessing it. And that's part of the business. That's part of being the coordinator. That is part of being a head coach. It is your job to bring in as many good football players as you can and let it shake out on the field. And there's going to come times where you have to make a really, really hard decision. And I've had to do it with staff. I've had to do it with players. But that's the job. And as long as you stay true to your original mission statement and your plan, you can't be wrong. Now, it may not show up on the field that it was the right call, but in your heart, as long as you made it and sticking true to your plan, it's going to work out. Not more often than not, it will work out. But that's the only way I can answer it, is recruit good football players, let it shake out on the field, play the best player, play the guy that gives your team the best chance to win, and everything else will work out.
Now that there's no way around it. That 2018 recruiting class, your first recruiting class, you're gonna have an attachment to those guys. How special do you feel like? Do you look at that first graduation? And do you just does it get you excited to know that those are your first men that you're sending out into the world? Because I know for me, even at the high school level, but I mean, even some when I was at the collegiate level, when I would see, kids graduate, I always felt great at graduation, watching them graduate. But there has to be something just even more special when you consider the magnitude of that program. That program is going to go down in history. That is the inaugural class, and also the first kids that you got to believe in your vision as a head coach. Have you thought about how special it's going to be in another 2 years, maybe for some 3 years, when those guys walk across the stage?
There's no doubt about it. I've thought about graduation. Where I really start to get a little choked up was when I start thinking about that very first senior day. That'll be emotional. That'll be very emotional. You know, the great thing that has been different for me as the head coach, Gene, as opposed to the coordinator, is how close I've gotten to be with the families. Normally, it's my job as coordinator to get that player into the head coach's office. The head coach seals the deal. Head coach has the relationship with the parents throughout. I'm there to coach the player. Now it's a different role. I am getting that player. He's getting into my office. I'm having the relationship with not only the kid, but really more importantly, the parents. You know, I've learned that as a head coach that, you know, if I want Gene to come to Clarke, I better have a good relationship with his parents, because his parents are going to be the ones that are making most of the sacrifice financially over the next 4 years. And you don't have the parents on your side, you don't have much of a chance. So that's going to be really emotional, because I've had a great connection with these players. I really had a fantastic connection with their parents over these last couple of years. And so I've thought about it. You know, you try not to look that far ahead, but it's going to be a special moment. I really hope that it's over some wins, because that'll make it even more enjoyable, Gene. The fact that they built this thing from scratch, they were taking a bunch of L's and big L's earlier in their career, and they stuck together, they fought together, and in the end, they won together and graduated and had that first senior day. So it'll be really special.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get you out of here on this one. Are you calling plays, or is your offensive coordinator calling plays now?
I am calling plays. Actually, Gene, I had a plan from the get-go, which was hire the best guys I could, and then I was going to fit in wherever I had to in the first year, 2019. So I was coaching linebackers last year with every intention of coming back to the offensive side of the ball once the staff was filled out. As I told you earlier, Clarke brought this thing in pieces, so I brought the staff in pieces. The staff will be complete this summer with a couple of part-time guys, and that will allow me to go back to the offensive side of the ball. So I'll be calling plays in 2020. I was coaching linebackers in 2019. So it's kind of a crazy deal. Any coach that's listening to this can say, that's weird. But
no. I think the funny part is that most coaches will understand, because I think you get to a head coaching level, or at least in my opinion, the best head coaches are the ones who kind of figured out how to do a little of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't really know what Belichick is really, really good at coaching individually. Because it's never really, like, he's always had his hands in so many different things. And even when he was a defensive coordinator, you know, or defensive backs coach, you just always felt as if he had his hands in so much of what was going on. And so I think that there's an understanding by a lot of coaches, especially probably a lot of coaches that go to the sub D1 FBS level of how flexible a head coach has to be. Was it difficult? And the reason I asked you about calling plays is, was it difficult last year not calling plays, to not, as the head coach, knowing that you kind of have that power to not step in the way of the coordinator as he was doing his job?
No, it wasn't. And I will tell you, because I mentally prepared myself very hard for that time before we got there. Gene, I've never been a head coach. I have never had to sit there and have a relationship with officials, be aware of the clock at all points of the game, be real, aware of the situation of what's going on within the game. So I knew I was going to have my hands full just learning how to do that. And so what I told myself was, Miguel, you're going to hire 2 guys. You're going to let them roll. As long as on offense they understand this is the vision of what we're going to be, and to take steps towards getting that. I needed to take 2019 to prepare myself how to be a head coach on the sideline. And that was a learning experience in itself. When to call a timeout, when not to call timeouts, when to tell your coordinator, hey, this is not working right now. We need to go in a different direction. Those things were all new to me, and I used 2019 as let's get my feet wet as well. So it was not hard for me. I did not talk to the offense side at all. I was more concerned with helping Coach Hicks on the defensive side of the ball and being aware of special teams and being aware of what was going on situationally on the offense side of the ball. So I knew if, man, we need to go for it here, or we need to try to kick a field goal, or we need to lay up a punt. Those are all things that I really needed to do in 2019. So it was very easy to step away. And now I'm really interested to see, how does this work being a coordinator and the head coach? There's not many guys that do that. You know, that's difficult. I'm realizing, you know, I'm wearing a lot of hats now. As I told you before last week, I spent a lot of more time in meetings that have nothing to do with football than ever in my career. And so now I'm going to be a head coach, a coordinator, and still have all this other stuff. So it'll be interesting, but I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I can't wait to get there.
Absolutely. And Coach Regalado, once again, I appreciate you joining us on Quarantine Coaches Conversations. Why don't you give everybody a social? Give us that quick 30-second elevator speech about why recruits should come to Clarke, or why coaches should send their kids to Clarke as we get out of here.
Well, I will tell you, the first thing that I always tell my kids is, if you're going to come to Clarke, your number one better be serious about getting a degree. You know, I am a big believer in giving our players the time to be student athletes first. So be serious about getting a degree, Gene, or I tell them you're going to leave Clarke with nothing but a bill. The second is to love football. We're going to be great in football here. And it's not because we spend 4 hours on the practice field. It's not because we spend 2-3 hours a day in the weight room. Everything we do here at Clarke is fast, but it's efficient. And that's why our kids enjoy playing football here. They're healthy. They're not waiting for the season to end so they can get on and get some rest. They love playing football here. Number three, I tell them, be ready to invest in your future. Everybody at Clarke pays a loan to go to school. And, Gene, I will tell you, 90% of the players that I recruit to come to Clarke are going to have an offer that's $5,000 cheaper. So the question becomes, why come to Clarke? And it's because of those reasons that I just spoke about. Our kids are going to get degrees because coach is going to give them time to be a student athlete. They're going to love playing football because coach doesn't grind them on the field or in the weight room. And you are going to have a great experience at Clarke University. That's why you want to come to Clarke.
Absolutely. Coach Rags, give them your social.
My social.
Your social media. See,
yes.
Look at you. You're killing me right now. Your social media, how can people follow you?
My email address. No, I'm just kidding. You know what, Gene? I have actually got into the Twitter world now.
I know.
I know, and I'll tell you what, social media is a big part of our deal now, and I'm learning to do it, and I've got a guy that takes care of our football Twitter account, but we're at Clarke Pride Football on Twitter, and at Coach M. Regalado on Twitter, and anything that we can do to help you or any other coaches out there, Clarke University is an open book, and we're here to help you.
Yeah, definitely, and I appreciate it. And make sure you keep us in mind if we get this, NAIA showcase off the ground this year. Maybe you coming down and hanging out with us, or sending one of your coordinators down to hang out with us. We'll see. That's M. Regalado on Twitter at M. Regalado. Once again, Miguel Regalado, head football coach, Clarke University. Coach, I really do appreciate it.
You're the man, Gene. Anything I can do.
Hey, thank you.
All right. Take care, bud.
All right. That's been another Quarantine Coaching Conversations. I'm Coach Clemens. You can find me on any social media platform at Gene Clemens. Make sure you follow the YouTube channel, Coach Gene Clemens. If you like whiteboard talk, we're on the board. We're talking X's and O's. Obviously, you see the X and O's of Joe's shirt right here. On these types of conversations that we have with great coaches, just trying to make sure that we give more info to people who just want to know what's going on the inside. And so until next time, I've been Coach Gene Clemens. Y'all stay safe. You be blessed.